Welcome back everybody to the Line Ball Pool channel. My name is Max and today we have a bit of a different video. We will be interviewing Dave Goldsmith, the man behind the Chalk Talk podcast. This podcast unifies the pool and snooker community and we will be diving behind the scenes to learn all about how he does it. So I started off by asking Dave, what is Chalk Talk in a nutshell?
First of all, thank you for letting me come on and speaking with you today. It's always brilliant to kind of branch out, and I really enjoy what you do. So really happy to do this. Chalk Talk it started back in April 2023, just as a kind of thing for me to do on a Friday evening, where I had some free time. I realised that the local pool scene just wasn't spoken about. It's not in the local papers. We'd had a couple of local lads win the championships in France, in Albi, in the back end of 2022. And, no recognition in the newspapers or anything. And I think that's, to represent your country and win gold medals is, the top of the range. So to not even be realised for that was crazy. So I started the podcast as a way of just talking about pool really and mentioning these people, and then I thought, well, I could have a couple of my mates playing the league, one of whom, Vinny Loden, runs one of the leagues. So I said, you know what, we'll have him on for an interview on the first week and we'll go from there. And then it was crazy that first sorry, that's my lad shouting over the room. So one of the first things we wanted to do was get viewers, and on that first show we managed to get over 300, which was, I didn't even dream of that. I thought maybe 7 or 8 people would listen in and that would be that. It then came to people asking me to come on the show, which, was another step. And it just kept growing from there, started getting asked to go to events, and sponsors came in. And before you knew it, Chalk Talk was global, which was, that still to me to this day is mind blowing itself.
And considering how much this has grown and elevated, I was curious to learn, what do you think you've learned the most from a single interview? Just someone who bestowed a bit of knowledge or maybe an experience from pool that really resonated with you or has just inspired you going forward?
Yeah, I've got a few of them actually, because every episode seems to be a lesson, that everyone's so different. And I mean, 2 or 3 episodes in, I had 2 local lads that are unbelievable at pool that represent the country, John and Rob Chambers, brothers, unbelievable at pool. Great lads, great speakers. They came on the show together. And I think the week before or the week after, I'd had Kyle Cope, who's an ultimate pool pro, and Paul Eaton, who's also involved with the England setup. They came on the show as well. And I realised from them 2 shows that you have to pay to play for England, which blew my mind. Apparently other countries, their government funds them to play pool for their country. For England, you have to pay, your own shirts, your own accommodation, your own flights. I saw a lad that I've got on my Facebook that's representing the men's A team in November in Malta. He's looking for £1,800 sponsorship so he can go, otherwise he can't. That to me was one of the things in pool that I didn't know, and I've been in pool a long time. That blew my mind. I spoke to Mariam Alami from Morocco. She's a ladies professional over in Morocco, and she was telling me how up until a certain age in Morocco, girls weren't allowed to play pool. So that was another thing that was like, wow, considering where she is now. And then I've had some big names on the show. Dave Gilberts, Chris Melling, Jack Whelan, and you start to learn about professional snooker. You start to learn about pool in China, which is a whole new mindset and a whole new game. And like I say, every show I come away from it going, well, I've learned something new today. And I think that's probably why the show's grown so much, because we have that variety of people that come on the show. We have the variety of the Q sports, and that's the way it keeps going, and it will continue to go like that, because like I say, everybody's different. Everybody I speak to is different, and it will just continue to grow and be different. So happy days.
Absolutely. And I noticed that in terms of that growth, you're extending out. I can tell you love your competition, because you've got the Chalk Talk annual competition now. So can you tell me a little bit about that, where that came from, and what that involves?
Yeah, a couple of people have asked me that, and I think people thought that that was something that was, maybe took a bit of thinking about and that, but it really didn't. I literally, um, I just thought to myself a couple months ago, there's a great guy called Harvey Elmhurst who is also involved with England setup, but he's involved heavily with Paul over in Nottinghamshire and at Towers, and he's so knowledgeable about what he does. He's so good at it. And I just messaged him. We were talking actually over Messenger, and I literally just said, "Oh, do you reckon we could get a short talk comp going at Towers and do it like annually?" It was literally just off one message, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll sort it." And then, yeah, I mean, we had some. It was a high standard, We had John McAllister in there, Ultimate Pool Pro, and the fact that because he's incredible, and the fact that he didn't win it shows how good the standard was. Ashley Walker won it, unbelievable pool player. He beat me 5-1 in the quarters, and I really didn't get a sniff. So yeah, it literally just came about over a simple message, and now it's going to be something that every year I think people will look forward to it. Because we only had about 8 or 9 people come over from Burton to Mansfield to play in it, but I think next year they'll at least be double that. I think it will take a good lot of people over next time.
Yeah, it sounds like it's growing exponentially, and I can feel that resonance to what's been going on in line ball too. We've recently recorded a couple of tournaments that haven't come out on the channel yet, but we're starting
Mm-hmm.
to get people in who are associated with the World Snooker Tour,
Yeah.
associated with Ultimate Pool. And when you play against someone, especially in a game like mine where most of the players are amateurs, you really get to see the standard of level, and they think in such a different way, and almost teach you just by playing against them. So I
Mm-hmm.
do find it deeply interesting. Now, I know you said that obviously you've had so many incredible guests already on the show. Who would you say is top of your wish list if you had to pick one more player within either pool or snooker as your number one? Who is that guest?
There's an obvious answer, but he's not going to be my answer just because he's literally unreachable, and that is Ronnie O'Sullivan. It's impossible. And I've come to the realization. I spoke to as close as I got was speaking to his PA, and she spoke to me and she said, "Look, I'll be honest with you, you've got no chance. Just due to how busy he is. He does make out like he's you know probably trying to slow it down a bit, but I know he's interested in going over to China to try the hay ball out. That's where the money is. So, completely understood. He's very busy. So that's absolutely fine. I think Gareth Potts is a big one. Um, we spoke in December, but again, he's just incredibly busy. But that's what you get when you're the biggest names and you're sponsored by China themselves, and they want you to keep coming over, and it makes it hard. So yeah, it'd probably be Gareth Potts, but snooker wise, Mark Selby would be a good shout. But again, anybody really that's got character, because some of my best shows have been with people that are around the local area, and yeah, like they've got character, they've got a laugh in them, and I have had a couple of guests that don't really like to have a laugh, and they're very serious, and it's an hour of serious talk, and that's not really what Chalk Talk's about. I like to have a good giggle and maybe take the mick a little bit. That's people want to listen to fun. They don't want to listen to monotone hour long all conversation.
Yeah, it's not quite like, a football post-match interview. I mean, you're a
No,
Liverpool
no,
fan,
no, no, no.
so, we know how it is where, you get the very straight answers and all very telegraphed. I feel like pool and snooker, I feel like the players often, for the most part, are their own person. And I think that's
Mhm.
something that separates it a little bit from football, where you have to be a little bit more media trained in all that. So, no, that's really interesting. And for anyone listening and watching along today who has never heard Dave's show before, I'll leave all the links in the description to Chalk Talk, and you can go and have a listen. And then hopefully, maybe even by the time this has come out, maybe he's got that dream guest. So,
Fingers crossed.
yeah. And then you'll know that it was inspired by hopefully here.
Yeah.
Now moving on to, obviously this is going up on the Lion Ball channel, and you've seen my series with Luke Terry, and I know we haven't played it together, but observing it from your end, you've got so much experience with pool and snooker, playing, watching it, and talking about it. And be as honest as you can if there's things that you think are entertaining, things that you think don't quite work. I would be really interested to hear your perspective of line ball just from you watching it.
It's one of them things where you're either going to look at it and be open-minded and go, "Oh, I'd love to give that a go," or you're going to look at it and not really be interested. And for me, I'm really interested. Like I say, I've watched a few of them, and I'm kind of like you say, I play pool, I play snooker. I used to play snooker, and I love cue sports altogether. I like having my cue in my hand and just playing like potting balls. You know, I know this is obviously a different aspect, but I just want to give it a go. I'm kind of like when I go to the pub tonight, I'm like, oh, shall me and my mate try and do it? But obviously, I don't want it. I want to wait for when the time is right. But I'm really intrigued by it, and I can't wait to give it a go, play it properly, and eventually get it out on your channel. Because I think looking at it, I feel like it's something I could be quite good at, you know.
Yeah,
But there at the same time, it's a whole different game, isn't it? So,
absolutely.
but it's interesting because I've always said, you know, I'm 30 now, and I always said I'd never be interested in playing bowls, you know, crown green bowls. It's never. I've always thought of it as being an old people sport, and it's never even crossed my mind. But then now that I've got my knee injury and I'm not playing football, I took up bowls a couple of months ago and happened to be quite good at it. And now I've got a whole different take on it. So for anybody that's listening to this and they're kind of either 50-50 or they're not interested in what you're doing, I'm going to tell them that they've got to give it a go. You've got to give it a shot because some things, when you try them for the first time, um, it's like addiction. It's like with bowls. I play it now and I'm like, oh man, I just want to keep playing it, and that's what it's like. So people have just got to give it a go, mate, and they'll be in.
Brilliant. No, thank you. I think that's a great way to equate it, especially because bowls and curling are the two sports that line ball often gets compared to. And for those of you listening who maybe have never even heard of line ball before, go on the channel. We've got a rules video. I can also link it below if you can't find it, so you can learn all the rules of the game. And Dave and I, when we can eventually meet in person, so we're a little bit far away, but we're going to get it done,
Yeah, a
and
little
we
bit.
can
Yeah.
play some line ball on the channel and show him the game. Because as you said with the Luke Terry series, what I will say is that Luke Terry is obviously a ultimate pool commentator and player, professional, and a very high caliber player. And when we played 8 ball, he destroyed me every single time. But when it came to line ball, the playing field was certainly leveled. And for
Okay.
me to be able to hold my own against someone of Luke Terry's pedigree, it showed me how far I've come within my own game. Now, yes, I invented it, and yes, I've had a lot more experience than he has beyond the day he had playing it with me. But it just goes to show how different the skill set is because, you know, if we both went to play snooker, we played in a bigger set of ultimate pool games, I would just be whitewashed. And so I now need to expose line ball to more people to see how much of a skill gap it's got because I feel like it is there. The ceiling to entry is a lot lower, I will admit. If you're a new player, I would say it's a much easier game than normal pool because potting can be quite difficult. But I'll be interested to see, especially when we play, how that compares to the Luke
Mhm.
Terry series. And yeah, you'll have to check out that final. I will not be
Yeah,
spoiling that.
I'm gonna watch it later now.
Yeah. So taking this back to you, I'd really like to know what's coming next. So, you know, you've had obviously these events, and you started to arrange your in-person pool, and you have got great guests. But for you, what is next for Chalk Talk and yourself personally?
That's a very good question because a couple of months ago, well, sorry, yeah, okay, a couple of months ago, I could have probably answered that. You know, I'd been invited to a couple of black ball events, one in Ireland in October and the one in Malta that I've already mentioned in November. And I was also re-invited back to do some press work at the Moscone in November, which is in Orlando, Florida. So, you know, kind of chance of a lifetime thing. But unfortunately, with me having my knee operation in September, and because it's not just keyhole, it means I'm going to be casted and out of action for a while. I'm going to be knocking Paul on the head for a couple of months. Obviously not the show. The show will continue. Of course, we'll always be putting interviews up. But in terms of me attending events for a couple months and playing and going and doing interviews out in the open at these big events, it's going to have to be put on hold just because of the situation I'm going to be in. I'm not going to be in any position to be running around. So yeah, it's an awkward one at the minute because, like I say, the show's always growing. But them couple of months, you know, your September to December, it's probably going to slow down. Not show wise, but myself going out there wise. Start of next year, I mean, look, at times in weeks this year, I've been doing 2 shows a week, which is brilliant. I always want to do more, you know, I always want to do more interviews and get them out there, but it's having the time, you know, if I need to be working full time until the podcast has enough funds for me to do it full time. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's not as easy. Like I say, a couple of months ago, I'd have had a 5-second one-line answer for you, but unfortunately, at the minute, I don't know what the next few months are going to hold, and that's the honest answer.
Yeah, fair enough. It's both exciting and you know, a lot of stuff up in the air for you, but I'm wishing you all the best for it. And I mean, the resilience of the show and having that consistency and your sponsors, it goes a long way, and people clearly believe in it and are listening. So it really does. And as I said, everyone, go to the description of the video, go to the comments. You can find the link to Dave's show, and also you can follow him on Facebook, where he's always posting pretty much daily updates, it feels, which is really cool to read through.
It
So
is.
when you follow him every single day you log into Facebook, you will see something. I can promise you that.
It was quite crazy. Yesterday, I received a message from a guy in Australia who I've never spoken to. I don't know who he is. He doesn't know personally who I am, but to receive a message from him and say that he's been listening and he really enjoys it. He's literally on the other side of the world, and that's the coolest thing. That kind of thing can't be matched. You know, just I mean, I don't know how many people message yourself regarding what you do, but you know, even when someone around the corner messages you and says, "Oh, bro, what you're doing is brilliant. Like, I'd love to give that a go. I really commend what you're doing." That buzz it gives you is like, wow. So when someone does it that's that far away that I've never even met, it's like, whoa, man, that's crazy. That's it proper. It makes you realize that what you're doing is a very good thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I've had a couple of those experiences recently, as you said, because yeah, when you get those, it just warms the heart.
Oh,
I've had a couple of messages from people in Thailand. So shout out if you're from there and you've been commenting on my YouTube shorts, asking about the rules and what this game even is. I've had people saying that they've gone and taking it to the pub and played it with their mates and they've enjoyed it. And I think the funniest unique situation I had was I had someone who went round to friends. He has a pool table at home. But the problem is he house shares, and playing pool late at night when he finishes work, say 8 or 9 o'clock, he can't really play too much beyond there because you know when you're clattering the balls,
yeah,
hitting, potting,
loud.
it makes a lot of noise. So he hasn't really been able to play too much, even though it's his own table. So when my friend introduced line ball to him, line ball's objective is to keep all the balls on the table. It makes almost half the noise, if not less. And he said that now he can finally play a pool game at his own home without any worry about noise. And I'd never even thought about this. And without this friend telling me the story, I would have never known. So if this is you and you've found the channel and you're listening to this, that is awesome. I never thought I'd be solving that kind of problem with what I do. And so
Yeah,
it's the
brilliant.
most random things, isn't it? And so to Dave, to wrap up and to sort of finish, I'd love to know, because I always like to ask for words of wisdom and advice to close out shows. And for yourself, it'll be twofold, because I'd like to know some advice you would have for any new up and coming pool players who are maybe on their own and don't have a community or a club or a place to play. What would you do? And the second half of it is, if you're an aspiring Q Sport content creator in any way, it doesn't have to be podcasts, but it can be audio related, because you've got the backing, you've got the sponsors, you've got the audience and the guests. So
Mhm.
where do you start getting into that? So
Okay. Well, we'll go on to the playing side of it first. Paul, on more than one occasion, and not just for myself, um, it saved people's lives, and that's the reality. You know, I mean, and I know about this a lot. Mental health wise, I know so many people that have been struggling on their own. They feel like when you're struggling on your own, there's nothing worse because you don't know what to do, where to go, how to solve the problems. You can speak to specialists, but they can't always help you in that way because you're then, once you finish speaking to a specialist, you're sat back at home doing nothing. So pool is a way that even if you're not great at it at the start, and let's be honest, every great player in the world, when they started, were probably no good. Let's be real. Nobody jumps on the pool table for the first time, slaps all 8 balls in, and break dishes. Everyone has to start somewhere, and it just clears your mind. You don't think about anything else the whole time you're on the table, and it's amazing. And then you meet people. In Burton on Trent, everyone's turning into a family. You go to a competition at the break room in town, or Potters up in Swadlincote, and everyone knows each other. And they're people that one is a guy that's got long hair, heavy metal. He just randomly started playing pool one day, realized he was pretty good, and now he's really good mates with a sporty athlete who's also really good at pool. And that's just because pool brought them together, whereas in a normal world they probably wouldn't be brought together. And I think that's one of the biggest things with pool, is that it brings people together to become a family. And if you're ever in a spot where you feel like you've got nothing to do and you can't go anywhere and life's boring and it's this and that, just go. Even if you're not specifically local to one, go and find your nearest pool hall, right? Get a cue in your hand. Go buy yourself a cheap cue, whatever you want to do, but go and get a cue in your hand and just knock some balls about. You see 2 other people in the club and you've gone to the club on your own. Go and ask them if you can have a game, or ask them if you can watch them, so you can pick some things up. They're not going to say no. If anybody comes up to us in the club and asks if they can have some pointers, we'll give it them, because that's what pool is about. No one's ever going to say no. Jog on, mate. It just doesn't work like that in the pool world. Yeah, and the other side of it, in terms of content, the advice I'd give is to just do it, because in pool there's not enough of it. There really isn't. People love reminding me, and I'll keep taking it as well. People love reminding me that nobody else does what I do in the pool world. Nobody's got what I've got. Somebody might have a specific 8-ball thing going on, or a specific 9-ball thing in America. I cover all bases, and nobody else does that. And I didn't think about that when I started doing what I was doing. Mine was literally just going to be about 8-ball pool, and then it spiraled. And the best things in life come from absolutely nowhere. My podcast came from nowhere. I originally didn't even think about it being a podcast. I just thought I'd speak on the radio for an hour a week. And now look, if it's in your head and it's something you want to start up, but you don't know if you're going to get any traction, just do it. Because if you don't get any traction, you're where you were anyway. You've lost nothing. You've lost literally nothing. But if it gains traction and suddenly you've got listeners in Thailand, you've got listeners in Australia, you've got listeners in Latvia, you've got listeners in Russia, bam, you're away. You're already away. You've already got your fan base. You've reached multiple countries, and that's the blessing. So definitely, if you're even thinking about it, just do it.
Yeah, that's really great advice and a nice way to sum it up. I feel like we're on a similar journey over here at Line Ball, trying to create some traction out of nowhere. Because again, this was something that just spawned from me playing in my pool hall with a few friends, and then considering I studied film production, I decided to turn the camera on one day. So it can really come from
There we go.
nowhere. So no, that's lovely. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Dave. I say the show like this is my own podcast. It's not a podcast. It's just one of our weekly videos. It's an
Matt, I
unusual
like
video.
being on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. How did it feel for you being on that side of the microphone?
I love it. I wish I could do this all the time. If people could just ask me questions, I really like it, because it's
Yeah.
relaxed. When I'm asking the questions, it's sometimes it can be quite daunting. Whereas on the other side, I love this. This is brilliant.
'Cause I know that for your job being a host, it's a tough job. You've got to put in your research. You've got to, show the care and attention for every
Yeah.
guest. So it can be, in a way, that thankless job. From when your job is done well, people don't always notice all the research and work you've done. So it's a great podcast. Go and listen to it. All the links will be below, and we'll try and do another one of these and get Dave on playing line ball as well. So subscribe. We do videos every single Tuesday at 6 p.m. UK time. And then we have YouTube shorts going up as well all the way through the week. So make sure you subscribe. It's usually line ball videos, and we're trying to sprinkle in some different stuff. So let me know if you're enjoying this too. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Dave for coming on the show, and we'll see you all in the next video.